The Crow City of Angels for Sega Saturn. Dear merciful Christ, why am I doing this to myself? If you've never seen The Crow starring Brandon Lee and Ernie Hudson, I suggest you put this review on hold and click over to Netflix. Right the fuck now. I'll wait. Based on the independent comic series written and illustrated by James O'Barr, The Crow was both a critical and commercial success when released in 1994, and it just so happens to be one of my favorite movies. In my opinion, it's a classic. Unfortunately, commerce superseded good taste, leading Miramax to produce a sequel. Of course, I'm referring to The Crow City of Angels, starring Vincent Perez. In City of Angels, Ash Corvin and his son Danny witness a gangland murder. They are captured, murdered, and thrown in the Pacific. Like Eric Draven before him, Ash is resurrected by the Crow and gifted supernatural abilities as a means to exact revenge on those responsible. Believe it or not, I actually liked the movie. I mean, it's a fascinating failure, kind of like Alien 3. It's obvious the filmmakers had different intentions, but as with Alien 3 4 years prior, it was reworked and re-edited to more closely resemble the first film. Yeah, they failed. It was such a failure, in fact, both the writer and director virtually disowned the movie before its release. What does that tell you?
Who the fuck are you? Does the corpse have a familiar face?
Now, looking at the gameplay, what comes to mind? If you're thinking Resident Evil, you're absolutely right. Like Resident Evil, we have 3D characters and objects over pre-rendered 2D backgrounds using fixed camera setups that cut from one to the next as our character moves onward. At least, that's how it's supposed to work, but I'll touch on that later. Let me explain this shit first. Really, City of Angels is a pseudo 3D beat-em-up. You clear many levels of thugs, bangers, biker babes, and gimps by any means necessary. Much of the combat relies on punching and kicking, though you will find weapons like knives, bottles, bats, machetes, pistols, machine guns, and severed arms. Yes, severed arms. No joke. Eventually, you're supposed to fight a boss. Forgive the lack of reference footage, I've been playing this shit for almost 4 hours straight and I've yet to reach a boss. You might be thinking, come on, it can't be that hard. Believe me, it has nothing to do with the difficulty. Just bear with me, okay? I'm getting there. That's the whole game in a nutshell. No puzzles or elaborate fetch quests to break up the monotony, just 3D fighting with a vengeance. Yeah, that's what the box says. A lot. You know, if this were a traditional brawler like Streets of Rage or Die Hard Arcade, I'd be okay with that. But it's not. Far from it. My God, how do I explain this? Okay, the first problem I'm compelled to address is the presentation. If you've seen my reviews for any one of the Resident Evil games, you know I love the series with every fiber of my being. Those slick visuals, tank controls, it all works. For an action-adventure game, not a beat-em-up, the frenzied action one would expect from a brawler just doesn't work in this style. If only they could have emulated Die Hard Arcade. The characters, weapons, and stages are 3D, and it actually feels like a fucking beat-em-up with bare-knuckle action that punches you right in the balls. It's awesome. The transition from one screen to the next is atrocious. In Resident Evil, there's a 1-second delay between shots, but it doesn't interfere with the action. Say you're running down a hallway or some shit and the screen cuts. The game doesn't break your stride. With City of Angels, oftentimes you're walking and Ash just stops. The first time this happened, I thought I had hit a wall or some sort of barrier. No, the game was just loading a new screen. Worse yet, the angle will shift for no good reason. You'll be waving your arms about like Steven Seagal, and the shot will randomly cut to another. It's almost as if the game knows that you're bored with this stiff exchange of blows and tries to liven things up. As annoying as that is, there's this one area in the graveyard where I go off camera and... Is it gonna cut? It's gonna cut away, right? Any day now! What the fuck? I lost my fucking mind here because one guy's shooting me while another's off screen kicking my ass. Since I can't see what the hell I'm doing, I can't fight back. It doesn't make sense. This area has a much wider angle where I can see this pocket of space. It's far away, sure, but it's better than this bullshit. That's another thing. These perspectives suck. They rarely give you a good angle in which to fight. I'm either too far away or my view's obstructed by another enemy. Once you've cleared a room, you gotta move on to the next. But where do I go? Beat up however many thugs required, a crow symbol will appear on the floor, giving you a vague indication as to where you're supposed to go. Doors typically have their own shot in Resident Evil, or the angle's wide enough so that it's clearly visible. Here I am in this fucking bar, there's the symbol, yet it's pointing at a goddamned wall. Or is it? No, it's a door alright, though it's such an extreme angle it isn't obvious. Here's this giant entry that looks like a vagina, but I can't get in. I know it sounds like a personal problem. I go left, I go right, and nothing. What am I doing wrong? You see that little blob of darkness? It's an obstruction of some kind. It doesn't even look like anything. I thought it was a shadow or some shit. Maybe it's a glitch. That reminds me, look at this. This pillar's obviously in the foreground, yet Ash, in the background, walks over it. He slices through it like a knife through air. I'm not kidding around. I mean, it doesn't even slow him down. Let's talk about the life bars. Plenty of fighters have life bars, but this is a convoluted mess. You see that thin strand of green? That represents one life. There are 3 strands in all, and once you lose a life, the remaining strands will expand to fill the empty space. Why doesn't it just drain completely, then refill when you come back? In Mighty Morphin Power Rangers the movie, it uses color to differentiate one life from the other. That makes sense, right? Did the developers play a beat 'em up before designing this thing? I doubt it. Your opponent's life bar works the same way, though they only get 1 strand per fighter. How about this crow symbol? In the beginning, I thought it was there for show, but it's a time limit. Yes, a fucking time limit. Okay, this is how it works. Okay. Whenever you enter a new area, the crow is bright. Over time, it will dim, yet the game continues. What's that all about? Yeah, you see, if you take too long in any given area, Ash will actually grow weaker as it dims. It won't affect your life bar, Ash will just take on more damage and his attacks won't be as strong. The game doesn't tell you that. No, I had to look that up in the instructions, otherwise I'd have no fucking clue. I say that because his attacks really don't look all that effective to begin with. Still, what's wrong with a simple time limit that makes your health bar flash intermittently from green to red? Maybe even a faint heartbeat to draw your attention. That would have been a very simple and subtle clue for the player to move their ass. Instead, it comes off as decoration, a cheap one at that. Good God, I hate this game so fucking much. I haven't even talked about the controls yet. Players often compare them to Resident Evil, which is downright insulting. Really, that's just as bad as comparing The Crow Wicked Prayer to the first film. If that happened, I'd shit twice and die. Like Resident Evil, no matter which way Ash is facing, up always moves forward. The similarities end there. Unlike Resident Evil, you can't move backward. You can't take a step back unless Ash assumes what I like to call his battle stance. Ash automatically switches to this battle stance whenever he's within arm's length of an enemy. I'm not entirely sure why, nothing changes really. I can step backward, though now I can't run away. I'll hit that run button like a redheaded stepchild and nothing. It's a trade-off that does jack shit to aid you. Terrific! The response time is appalling. Whether you're walking or running, punching or kicking or whatever the fuck else, it takes a couple seconds for Ash to perform the fucking action. In any game, that's unacceptable. Here, it's the one fatal flaw that ruins the entire game. Attacking is especially bad since it demands precision. I'm punching this twat waffle, though as far as the game is concerned, I'm not landing a single blow. Kicking's way more effective thanks to the roundhouse. Sadly, the animation's drawn out and leaves Ash open to counter-strikes. You can block and crouch, yeah, but the delay makes it an exercise in futility. You're better off mashing the buttons and hoping for the best, which is an exercise in itself. Using weapons aren't much better. Knives and bats do little to extend your range, though they deal more damage. The best weapon by far is the machine gun, for it kills most of these leather-clad sex slaves almost instantly. But that's pure luck. I say that because these tricky camera views and poor response time make it damn near impossible to fucking aim. Even better, if they have the gun, they don't have that goddamn problem. They got you dead bang and you're as good as dead. I played this one fucking stage for like 8 goddamn times. Guess how many times I made it past this area? Twice. Each time I died, not 1 minute later. Every time you die, you have to see this.
I'm sorry, Dad. Now we can never be together. You must remain here forever.
Okay, I can't go on. There's not one redeeming quality I can cling to. Even the music is nauseating. In that respect, City of Angels is worse than Technocop. As a matter of fact, City of Angels is worse in every respect. This may very well be the worst game I've ever played. If not the worst, it's easily in my top 3. If you're an obsessive Saturn collector, fine, go ahead, buy it, complete your collection. If it has a decent case,
You're wasting your breath, Angelito. Nobody's up there listening.